Let's go. I'm actually not going to read the person's name because more often than not, I can't even describe what it is because I'm not going to actually read the person's information just because it doesn't necessarily make sense, but maybe I can incorporate it into the... I'm just going to go ahead and read the questions. I'm not going to... Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing the second part of the Q&A. So last week I asked for questions so that I could try to give answers. And this is the first time I've ever done it, so we'll see how it goes. I actually did get quite a few good questions, and hopefully I can provide some decent answers for you. But let's go kind of down this list, and some will be a quick, short answer. Some might be a little bit more long, but I'm just going to go ahead and read the questions, and you'll know if you actually were the one that asked that question. So first question, you use the Glow 42-inch beauty dish with white interior. Have you ever experimented with the silver interior variant? No, I have not. I probably should. And that actually sounds like a great little video idea. So maybe I'll buy a silver interior beauty dish and test it out and compare the two, and we'll see what happens. Great question. First things first, love the channel and your work. I'm new to photography, so my questions are pretty basic. How long did it take for you to master composition? Mastering composition, I don't know. So I was a graphic designer long before a photographer, and so I kind of learned composition that way as far as what looks good. Now, graphic design and photography are two different things, but what looks good always looks good. Then I learned it more so in the photography, videography realm, doing broadcast journalism for the Air Force. So again, we kind of reiterated and learned what good composition is. So now I feel like I see it without seeing it, if you know what I mean. So I think it takes time. I think it just comes with shooting and practice and shooting. The more you do it, the more you actually look at people's work that actually has good composition, and you maybe try to emulate that. I think you'll actually start to see it as you shoot, to a point where it's almost second nature as you shoot, and you don't really think about, is this right? You're just going to it's going to flow right into what's right. Let's see, the second part of that, using off-camera flash is a skill I am trying to develop. I know practice is key, but do you have any suggestions on how I can get comfortable with on when, where, how to use indoor environments? I'd love to hear suggestions on basic gear to start with. I have a trigger and a speed light, but I'm looking to upgrade a strobe. So I'll actually hopefully try to add a little card in here. I did a video basically kind of describing what my thoughts are on a speed light versus a strobe and kind of getting started. I think you can use speed lights, but you're going to quickly outgrow them if you're wanting to try to get off-camera lighting to be more of your work. And so you're going to quickly outgrow that flash. And so what I suggest right away is go straight to a Godox 80-200 or Flashpoint Evolve 200. It's a pretty powerful strobe, very versatile. You can use it very similarly, not the same, but similarly as a speed light, because I'm typically always going to use that off the camera if I can. Now, if you're shooting events, then you're not really going to be able to put it on the camera, but go straight for the strobe, or go straight for the 200. Practicing it. Watch YouTube videos. That's honestly where I learned more how to do it. I watched a lot of YouTube and practice. And for indoor lighting, if it's like a one-on-one portrait session, I would choose an LED over a speed light or a strobe, because with an LED, especially if you're using a mirrorless camera, it's what you see is what you get. And so you can easily adjust your exposure and see it right away as is this good or bad exposure, good exposure. And the final one, struggling with posing my model and subject. How did you learn to overcome that? I worked with a lot of models. That's how I learned posing. I worked with a lot of models and I watched what they did. And so then I started to incorporate that. And it wasn't easy. Posing, I think, was probably one of the most difficult aspects. And I think it still is one of the most difficult aspects of photography that people don't realize, especially portrait photographers have no clue when they're getting into it that posing is critical. It's probably second most critical thing in photography next to the exposure triangle. That's my own personal opinion. Next question, grid or no grid for your diffusers? Is there a difference? So yes, I do typically grid all of my strobes, my softboxes. They control the light spill. So if I pull off, I'll tell you when mostly I use it without a grid, it would be more of a broad daylight type thing. When I need more light, because that grid is basically cutting light also. And so if I need to get more light, I'll pull the grid off. If I need to control that grid or control that light spill more, then I've got the grid on. But more often than not, I've got the grid on. And yes, there is a difference. Let's see here. Thank you for sharing your passion and knowledge. Do you use ND or polarizing filters or high-speed sync only? Up until about 5 months ago, I strictly used polarizers and high-speed sync. That was just my workflow. I had never come across an ND filter that I liked, but looking back now, I actually wonder if I wasn't using it correctly. And this might sound stupid, and I might get some stupid comments for this, but it is what it is, and I'm going to be brutally honest. When I put the ND filter on, knowing now I need to shoot it at my sync speed, and I don't remember, this is the hard part, I don't remember if I turned off high-speed sync on my trigger. If you don't turn off high-speed sync on your trigger, but yet you still go to 1/200th of a second, which is your sync speed, you're still engaging the high-speed sync function. And so I don't remember if I did that or didn't do that, but that was probably 2 years ago. And so I just kind of wiped them out altogether and just stopped using them. Now I use a variable ND and CPL from Freewell, and I will get that listed below. And yes, I do kind of go back and forth. If I'm shooting action shots, I'm still going to go with a high-speed sync. And if I'm shooting portraits, I'm really trying to go more with that ND filter because I really like the look with the ND. Let's see here. There was a part 2 to that. About your gear, I see you use a wheeled base for your stand sometimes. What is it called and where did you get it? Is it standard or specific to the stand? And if so, what stand? It's not specific to the stand. It's actually and I'll get it again listed in the comments. It is by Newer, and it is a C-stand wheelbase, basically. It opens and folds up fairly easily. I tried actually, so Newer is a fairly inexpensive brand on Amazon, which is also where I bought it. I actually tried to go with an off brand of Newer to replace it because Newer's, I think, the first time I bought it was like $50. The next time I bought it was like $70. And so I was like, let me go back to the $50 price point. And so I bought like an off brand of it, and that off brand had smaller wheels. The Newer one has a larger wheel or caster wheel, and it just rides smoother along asphalt or bumpy surfaces. And so I can just connect that right to my C-stand. I can use it on other light stands as well, but Newer is the brand of the wheelbase. And again, I'll get that listed in the description. One more from that one. Is there much real life difference between what you can get from an 85-1.2 versus an 85-1.8? Yes. Yes. 1.2 is, 1.8 is great. If you can afford to go 1.4, I would go 1.4. So like Sigma Art has a good 85 millimeter 1.4. That is very, very sharp, and the chromatic aberration is fantastic. If you can go 1.2 and you can afford it, then go 1.2. All day long, go 1.2. 1.8 will work. And as you're learning and as you're making money, 1.8 is definitely where I would go. But if you can afford to go with a 1.4 version of the 85, I would do that. And then you can actually hold on to that 85.14 for quite a while and grow into that and continue to grow with it. Do you need to go from 1.4 to 1.2? That's questionable. For me, I just decided I wanted to go L series glass, which is why I went 1.2. But yes, there's a big difference between 1.2 and 1.8. What is a genre of photography you would like to get into and why? And what is a genre of photography you have zero interest in getting into and why? I have zero interest in getting into anything wedding related or event related. That bores the crap out of me. To me, there is nothing worse than standing there just taking pictures of things that are happening all around me. That I don't want to do that. The one that I would like to get into, that's a tough one. I'm a big proponent of, if you're using photography as a business, you need to shoot photography that's going to actually make money, right? And so there are plenty of versions of photography that just don't happen to bring in a lot of money. And I think auto photography is one. I actually love shooting cars. I think cars are beautiful. And so if I could, maybe I would shoot more cars. And they're just not as fun because people aren't involved, and I like people. That's part of the fun of portrait photography for me, is getting to meet one-on-one and work with people. So probably auto photography. Here's one. How do you prepare to get to know your seniors prior to their senior session? Do you send questionnaires or do you conference? I do a phone conference. I usually do like a FaceTime type thing. Before COVID happened and I wasn't shooting nearly as many, but I would try to do a face-to-face with clients. I feel like I'm a little bit too busy to actually schedule face-to-face, like in-person face-to-face. So now typically I will do a face-to-face via FaceTime or something like that. Here's another senior question. My question again is around your senior sessions. How do you structure payment? Do you communicate you have session fee and they purchase images from the session they like, or does your session include a number of images? There are plenty of photographers who do this all kinds of different ways. I typically will include images in my session fee. There are some people who do like a sit fee. And then they'll do kind of like, so that includes their session, and then they do maybe in-person sales. And so then they'll meet with that client again later and they'll sell that way. I don't do that. I include images every time I do a senior session. That's just the way that I've done it. My price maybe starts a little bit higher than some other photographers, but there's not a higher end on the backside. I think that sometimes clients can kind of be caught off guard with, and I've actually seen that in my own experience. So I don't do it that way. I let everybody know up front, this is what you're paying for and this is what you get. If there's other stuff that you want, then we can build on that, but they always know that way up front. I don't try to backdoor anything, and I'm not saying that others do. I'm just saying I am completely upfront. You pay me this, you book my deposit, to lock in your date. You pay the remainder of the date of, and this is what you'll get from that. I have 4 different options. If you can pick one of those 4. Let's see here. Canon R5 or Canon 5D Mark IV, which is the best camera? That's easy. The R5. The R5 is hands down the best of those 2 cameras. First of all, it's way newer technology. Mirrorless is where every camera manufacturer is going. There is no reason why I would spend $1,500 on a 5D Mark IV when probably after tomorrow or later after today, when the R5 Mark II gets announced, R5s you're going to be able to find for $2,000 to $2,500. So I would definitely go with an R5. again, you're talking DSLR, which is already probably 5 or 6 years past its prime, well before that. And then mirrorless, who I don't think has actually fully come into its prime yet. I think we're still seeing a lot of new strides and steps taken in mirrorless that just blows DSLR away. So I would not spend my money on a 5D Mark IV. It's a fantastic camera. It can still work for you, but I would not spend the money that people are going to ask for that body when you can spend a little bit more and get a solid mirrorless camera. And if you don't want to go with the R5, go with the R6 and you're going to save even more money. Or R6 Mark II. That's where I would go. All right, so the next question. Broad lighting and short lighting comparison. So this one's kind of hard to do a comparison in the Q&A format, but basically just to let you know, broad lighting is typically when the light is hitting the side of the face closest to the camera, where short lighting is the opposite. And so typically what I do when I do a headshot session is I offer both. That way they can look and decide which one they prefer. And that's basically what I'm going to say on that. I think there's definitely pros and cons to both. I think that your models, whomever they be, whether male or female, can look good with both. I've heard, heavier people, maybe a broad lighting is better, but then I've heard maybe a short lighting is better. It really just depends, which is why I offer both. So again, broad lighting is the part of the face closest to the camera is going to be lit, leaving a shadow on the other side, whereas short lighting, the part of the face furthest from the camera is going to be lit, leaving more of a shadow or, on the closest side to the camera. I'm going to read it just as it's written. Sometimes using natural light only, I have to exposure the image in camera, which is quite dark, so I don't clip the highlights. Then it takes so much work to bring back the image so that it doesn't look dull and has no pop. Are you always concerned with blinkies? And so I actually had to respond to the person because I wasn't sure what blinkies were, but he basically meant the overexposure or the highlights sometimes. You can actually set it on your camera to where if you've got it overexposed, you get a little bit of that flicker or what he's calling blinkies because you're basically showing what's overexposed. So I do use the histogram when I shoot, and I typically try to ensure that my stuff is exposed properly. With the R6, I'm not sure. I haven't actually used it, but I do believe that it's fairly good as far as the dynamic range, bringing back some of what you're underexposing or even bringing back some of what you've overexposed. To be short with the answer, I would say I try to get it as close to the correct exposure in camera before shooting it, right? So I'm trying to get it the right exposure before clicking that shutter. And I'm still using off-camera flash, so I'm exposing my scene correctly, and which is probably going to leave my subject underexposed, and then I hit the light on my subject to expose them correctly, and that helps me limit some of those blinkies, right? So yeah, I do pay attention to those, and I just try to make sure everything is exposed as properly as it should be in camera before I shoot. But then again, sometimes if I need to, I can still bump up in post or move it down in post, whatever is needed. I don't know if that fully answers your question. Almost done here. Let's see here. I thought this was a good one. I am struggling to find any models for free. How do you get all these models and shoots? I am in 12 different Facebook groups searching for free models and TFP base, but still nothing, and I have really good pictures actually. When I posted them on other photography groups, they went almost viral and good reactions, but now I am really struggling. Also, if I find people, I can't close the deal. I do this for a hobby, so not paid. That's a good question, and here's my answer. You're probably not going to like it because you just said at the very end you're not getting paid. If you can't find free, you're going to have to pay. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to have to pay $120 an hour for a model. There are some models that maybe they don't charge that much. I know here in the San Antonio area, some of your better models are charging $60 an hour. That's not too bad. But I think that you could also find people that would be just like a $25 or a $30 thing. I don't think that it hurts to pay for somebody's time. Now, that's out of the way. On Instagram, look on Instagram. One thing that I did on Instagram is I follow photographers that shoot similar to me, similar styles. I would follow them. If I see models that I like the look and I like kind of what they're doing, I would follow them. Maybe sometimes they would follow me back. And if I see that they're collabing with some of these other photographer friends of mine, then I will reach out to them and see if they want to collaborate. So Facebook, I've actually kind of gone away a lot from Facebook groups because I have felt, at least over the last 2 to 3 years, that the models I get and find on Instagram are a little bit higher quality. And I'm not meaning in looks or anything like that. I'm just meaning what they're capable of and how comfortable they're feeling in front of the camera. So I'm leaning more towards the Instagram route when it comes to finding people to work with. Now, the last part of that is, and I've mentioned this in my podcast before, and I've possibly also mentioned it in several videos before, is what I have done, and my group actually keeps growing, is I build and I have built a model group that I use. And so I've got, I think it's about 15 models slash dancers that I have on Instagram, and I've got a group chat with them. And so, they all have different skill sets. Some of them are more comfortable in front of the camera. Some of them are less comfortable in front of the camera. Some of them are dancers. Some of them are not. And so I've built my own group, my own pool that I can go to in case I'm, one, maybe feeling in a rut, two, not getting the clients that I need. I can always reach to my pool and say, hey guys, I would like to shoot. Anybody available these dates? And so if you're not finding it for free, consider paying. Maybe look on Instagram as opposed to Facebook. And as you start working with some of these, or if you have some that you've worked with in the past, see if they're willing to continue to collaborate with you and build a group of models that you can reach out to on a consistent basis. That actually really helped me out, and it continues to help me because it allows me to be in a constant state of creativity for my work. And the final question, I know it's a long video, I apologize. The final question, as a current high school beginner, what would you suggest to shoot to get some acknowledgement? And this one's really broad. And I actually got this was an email in, but this is just too broad. So here's kind of what I did. I knew where I wanted to go with my photography. So that's kind of what I would say is know where you want to go with it. That's like the first part of that battle. If you're just, you're wanting photography, well, where do you want to go with it? So know where you want to go with it and then start guiding people to that. I wanted to work with the high school arena, right? And so I started gearing my work more towards them. So I built like senior model groups, senior model teams, and started shooting a lot of high school seniors and built a reputation in that field. And so then people started noticing my work more that way. So it really depends on where you want to go. So I can't tell you exactly where. You need to know where you want to go. So if you don't know necessarily what you want to do, if you're like, I like all realms of it, well, I can't really help you because I don't know what to tell you to pinpoint because I don't know where you're at. Figure out where you want to go with your photography and start figuring out, okay, if this is where I want to go, these are the people that I need to work with in order to get to that place, and then start sharing those types of images to your social media. Tags that still work, they don't work like they used to, but share your images and tag and tag and tag. Maybe get some people to like kind of represent you so that they can kind of market your work, and then maybe more and more people will see it. For me, that worked, and maybe that can work for you. Y'all, thank you so much for all of these questions. There was questions with sub-questions and sub-questions, so I know this has been a long video, but thank you. I really do appreciate it. I hope that you did get a little bit out of this. I would really hope to do another one of these soon, but until that time, keep shooting.